We've got the Yuthi E18 robotic lawnmower. Now, this is different than any other robotic lawnmower that we've reviewed in the past, and we've reviewed several of these. Now, this one does not have an antenna. You don't have to bury any wires. You basically set it and forget it. Not quite, but it's very close. 5 minutes, take it out of the box and start using it. That's what they claim. So let's see if they're right. Okay, what we have in front of us is the Yuthi E18 robotic mower. This thing's different than any of the others that we've reviewed before. And just unboxing this and unpacking it, by the way, boxed very, very well. Everything nice, tight, and secure in some foam dividers and everything else. So very well packaged. But we pulled everything out, and this is all. Now, I say this is all because typical robotic mowers, you have a lot more stuff. One main thing is a big antenna. Usually there's at least one antenna and a power supply for that antenna, and sometimes some type of connection device with that as well. But this is everything we get in the box, and then this is the one in this box. These are just spikes to hold down the charging dock. These are extra mower blades and screws. We'll get into that here in a moment. This looks like probably a power cord extension so that you can, so extension basically to the power supply. So the power supply is probably, I don't know, 10 feet long, maybe 6 feet long. And then if you want to extend that to run that out further, you've got to put it away from the house somewhere, out in the bushes somewhere, you can do that. So that's just an extension to the power supply. But that is about it. It looks like some grease, so doing some maintenance later on. I'm sure that's somewhere in the manual. And then these are just screws to put on the lid to the charging dock. So you actually get a lid right there on the charging dock. By the way, pull this foam block off, and that's actually where the mower will charge. And again, we'll show that here in just one moment. That's it. Mower, charging dock, power supply to charge the mower, the spikes to put it in the ground, the hood to put on top of here for our Florida rainstorms to keep it out of the direct weather, even though it really doesn't bother it, and the mower. So very impressed with the minimalist packaging, or actually minimalist products, and no antenna to worry about. And that's kind of the idea of the Yuthi, is this thing's kind of supposed to put it out in the yard, crank up your app, and tell it to go, in a sense. So that's what we're going to find out and do. So not a lot to talk about here, but let's go over some of the key features right here on the mower, and then we'll get this thing started. By the way, quick start guide right there to walk you through everything, even a QR code to load the app. We're not going to go through all that. And then there's your full user's manual if you need that. And again, probably later on with doing maintenance like changing blades, things like that. We have rear drive wheels here on the back, seem to be about a little over 8 inches tall with the knobbies on there. And then when you stand this thing up, you'll see. So here's the business end of the mower, the bottom side with the mower deck, if you will. We have 3 spinning, kind of like razor blades. And those things are, I don't know, 1.5 inches long or so. Yeah, a little over 1 inch long and probably 1/2 inch wide, and blades on both sides, and they spin around as this disc is spinning, and that's how they cut. That's also how they move out of the way if it actually encounters something. That disc cuts with the blades out probably about 8 inches wide, and then we have a wheel up here on the front that, as you can see, just kind of acts as a spinning wheel, if you will. Now it actually pivots and allows the back wheels to actually drive and steer the mower. We have a power button right here. We'll turn that on in just one moment, and that's about it. And by the way, you can rinse this off, but just don't do any high pressure like pressure washer stuff under here. Now up here on the front of the mower, these are all the brains that's making this happen. These are the actual cameras and sensors that are actually mapping out the lawn, doing a 3D imagery of your lawn, and being able to tell everything that may be an obstacle, everything that may be a driveway, a sidewalk, anything other than, say, grass and greenery. It's actually going to understand what's what and be able to map it out on its own and be able to safely mow that, avoid dogs, avoid kids, avoid obstacles in the yard, things like that. These 2 ports here are basically what actually goes into the dock and connects to the charger, or connects to the dock and actually allows this to charge. Now this is the E18 model. Basically, it allows it to cut more than the E15 model, but the E15 has all the same features and everything else. The E15 just costs a little less, but it's going to cut less of a yard as far as power and features and the smart ability of it, the E15 and E18 are going to be identical. Up here on the top, just a few buttons here. Large stop button. If for any reason you're out in the yard, you see it doing something you don't like, headed for the pond, whatever, you can hit the stop button. Everything shuts down, and grab it by the handle and carry it back and put it on the charging dock. A home button, which basically is going to tell it to just go home. Go back to the dock and start charging. Play pause button as well as power button, and then a check button to filter through different menus. But you can do most of this or all of it on your phone. Large battery display right here. Once we put it on the charge, once we get it in the yard, you'll actually see that light up. And then these two little dots right here, those are two metal tabs sticking up, and you have a little dish right there. What that is a rain sensor gauge. So if it's out mowing and it starts pouring down rain and that fills up, and basically that's going to make connectivity, and it's going to say, hey, go back to the charging dock, get under the shelter and wait out the storm. And when that dries out, then it will head out again and start mowing once more. You see all the dots and lines there on the back of the charging dock. That's basically so the mower can see that and know that it's pulling in the line itself up to get into the charging dock and start charging. Let's go ahead and get this thing out in the lawn and let it start mapping. Okay, first thing we're going to do is power up this dock, and then we'll get it actually put in. Pretty hard to mess up here. Right now, we're going to mount it right in the edge of the yard, and then we may move it later into the bushes. Don't over tighten these, just run them in. We'll go ahead and mount the hood. So underneath the mower here, we're going to turn it on, and then should see the battery lights light up, and put it in the base station. You should hear an audible charging out of it and a little tone. So you can download the Yuthi app. I already have the app. I actually have their security system running. And right here from the plus sign, I'm going to add device. You can see they have all types of security, and then mower, robot lawnmower, and the E18. Say next. Power on. I'm going to allow Bluetooth devices. I have powered on. Press and hold the power and home button simultaneously for 1 second. And we should hear a voice confirmation that the reset was successful. I'm assuming pull it off of here.
Wi-Fi connection has been reset.
So reset completed. Now it's searching for Bluetooth. There it is. Yuthi E18. Connect. And now we need to connect to Wi-Fi. Okay, we've got our password and our Wi-Fi in. Click next. It just gave me the confirmation it's connected to Wi-Fi. And then you should have a ticker on here showing the percentage. This may take a moment. So the mower just told me it's successfully connected. The app is still, oh, there it goes. 100%. Wiring and network setup. Ensure your home network signal is strong for smooth operation, and make sure power connection okay. We've got the base station installed. Lawn is prepared. So now it's asking us to create a map. Okay, I'm not really sure if I need to return this to the base or not. I'm going to leave it right there and just tell it to start creating a map. I'm going to click start. Not charging. The robot is not at the base station. To start mapping, please place the robot back in the base station. Okay, that solves that. Makes that easy. So, either obey the app or go ahead and stick it in the base station before you start mapping. And I didn't even have to do anything. It's going to start mapping right now. So right now, while it's mapping, it's not cutting anything. It is just literally going out and mapping this yard. So it's looking for this greenery or for this flower bed. It's also looking for the edge of the grass and the start of the concrete. to know that those are boundaries. So it's literally making a complete 3D scan of this entire area to understand its own boundaries. No antenna setup, no mapping of having to control this or drive it around. It's literally just handling itself. And we'll see how well it does. And if we need to, we can put in some no-go zones if we have to. Right out of the gate, you can see it comes out of the charger, kind of spins around slowly, kind of gets its bearing, and it's using the AI cameras and the 3D cameras to actually build a 3D image of this lawn, as you can see on the map. It has not driven all those edges, but it's mapping out that just by seeing that with its cameras and radar to be able to map this lawn out. So we sped this up a little bit just to make it not so boring, but we're showing you how it's now mapping out the lawn, again, using the cameras and building that map. And this is pretty much live. Sometimes the map will lag just a little bit depending on what it's doing, but it's literally building that map as it's running around, and you can see it right there on your app. Pretty impressive as to what it can do with no antenna. And my understanding, really not using GPS either, just with the cameras on board to do this. Okay, so it only took about 15 minutes to map this. That's pretty impressive, actually. Now, we've got another piece we're going to map as well. But for now, let's just go into some settings. We're going to change some things, maybe mowing height, things like that. And but we'll let this mow and see how well it does. Okay, we're about to mow, but I went into settings here and I just went through and set the grass height at 50 millimeters. That's about 2 inches. And the edge spacing, that's how close it gets to the sidewalk. I shifted it all the way over because I want to see if it will actually clean up the complete edge. And then it gives you a little warning there that it may, come in contact with stuff. Path spacing is the overlap, and I've just got that at the standard 12 centimeters. I set the travel speed to fast and the blade speed to fast, and the path direction, I changed it just to kind of the angle with kind of the longest stripes, and you can change that as you want to. Not going to set a schedule right now, but now we're just going to hit the play button and let it start cutting. And by the way, it did mention that you may see the mower actually make some circles and turns, things like that, on its first mowing. After that, it should be able to clean up those and just have longer straight runs. Now, I heard the blades just crank up, and now it's cutting. Okay, we're going to stop this and set the mower height, because that's cutting pretty low there. Raise it up to 75 millimeters and restart this. So that first little pass was literally starting to scalp the yard. So we actually changed the setting up to 75 millimeters, and now it's doing absolutely fine. And as we mentioned, this thing is still trying to find its way and build this map, or really perfect the map. So when you see it kind of turning round and round in this first pass, again, it's kind of confirming all the mapping as well as making this the best map possible. And as we do a second pass, it gets much faster, and also the straight lines become even straighter. It does very little, spinning around or turning or finding anything. It just literally goes down, turns around, comes back, makes a straight path. And these paths are very parallel to one another. They are very, very straight, much straighter than any mower that you're going to run. Also, as you saw on the map, we can set these lines to be diagonal. We can set them to be the opposite way. There's several different options that you can choose from and really kind of make your own if you want to, as to what angle of lines you want it to run. But it is going to run lines back and forth or side to side, and then it's going to do the perimeter, and then it will go back home after it's done the perimeter. Okay, looks like that it's complete, and now it's actually going into charge, and it looks like we're at about 52% of battery life. The Yuthi mower automatically has avoidance and detection of obstacles that come in its way, even though they're not mapped in there. So you can see I just threw that ball out there. It sees it immediately, and now it's going to operate around that obstacle. So you don't have to worry about if a kid's in the yard, a dog's in the yard, toys are in the yard, things like that. It's still going to avoid them. You can also turn on or toggle on basically a steep slope avoidance, as well as things like drop-offs. If you have a pool nearby, things like that, it will still be able to detect those and not go over a cliff or on a steep slope that it can't maneuver. Something else you can turn on in the settings, and I would highly recommend you leave this on, is anti-theft. So all you have to do is go into your settings, and then under anti-theft, you can turn on the anti-theft alert. So it will give you app notifications, and it will also sound an alert on the machine itself when it actually leaves the work area. If somebody does walk away with this, number one, it has to be bound to the network. It can't just work on its own, so you actually have to bind it to a phone. You can share this with other people as far as the app, but it does have to be bound to something, so it's not like they can just take this, run with it, even if they took the base station and be able to use it. So now we sent it out a second time, and this second time it's cut it much faster than the first, and it's now just cleaning up the few loose ends. And what happens in Florida a lot are showers. And she's dirty, so we'll just give her a quick hose down here. So that water's not going to hurt it, but what it did is the rain sensor gauge actually sensed the rain and told it to go back home and dock. And then once that dries out, in another hour, it will try again to go mow. Okay, well, our mower is only at 40%, but we're going to add a pathway as well as another mowing zone. Now, to do that, we click on Edit Map, and we don't add a cutting zone first. We add a multi-zone pathway. And I'm going to click Add Pathway, agree and continue. And now what's going to happen is now I get a remote control here on my screen, on the app. And I want to drive it to my start point. So I'm going to back it out. And I'm going to drive it right to the edge of the lawn, or right where I want it to cross. Okay, now I'm going to say start point, set start point. Now I want to drive it across and then set the end point. And by the way, that little circle it's doing is basically letting you know that it is sensing this is the start point of the pathway. I'm sure it's probably doing a map or something, so it knows where the start of the pathway is. And then once it stops, I'll have remote controllability again on the app. I'm going to drive it across. Now, once I'm at the end of my pathway, I can say set endpoint. Now it's going to actually start mapping on its own. So I don't have to tell it to do anything. It's going to map now the other area of the lawn. So this other section here is St. Augustine grass. The other section, I believe, was zoysia. So a little bit different of a turf here in Central Florida. St. Augustine is very prominent in Central Florida, especially in nicer neighborhoods. And then zoysia is even a little more elite grass, if you will. But still very plush grass. But this thing does a great job. Again, it's going out and mapping everything out and building that map. And there's a lot more obstacles, if you will, in this mapping here on the second part of the lawn. We have flower beds, we have trees in the middle, we have tree roots sticking up, we have little sand piles here and there that are basically areas where the lawn has died over the winter, and so the sand, you kind of spread that out, and what happens is those dead spots, the grass will start to grow through there and level out just fine. You can also use the sand to level spots that are low as well. So very common here in Florida. So it's going to map all that out. Now, one thing with the sand, it is going to recognize that as almost like concrete if it's a large area, and it won't mow or won't map over it, but it will come back later and fix that as that grass starts growing green through there. So now it's mapped everything out, and now it's actually going out and mowing. So now it's actually doing the mowing of the second half of this lawn, and this is a lot larger area as well. So it actually takes a couple of charges to do this area, where the other one, the first area, it will do that in one charge, no problem at all. This one will get about halfway through here, a little more than half, and then it will actually go back home to charge. And then once it charges back up to 80+%, it'll come back out and finish the mowing. Now, When it gets down to 20%, as we mentioned, it will also go back home to charge. It is down to 19%, so I guess it is coming back to dock before it finishes that lawn. So I guess 20% must be the threshold for it to go down to. Now it's going to go back, charge a little, and then go back and finish the task.
Charging.
Now, this was an area where I thought there might be problems in the future, and so I actually drew a no-go zone around this so it didn't even fiddle with it. So you can see there on my map, the two red squares, that's where I literally drew no-go zones so it wouldn't mess anywhere near that, especially when it gets rainy here in Florida. There'll be some water around those culverts. As far as hills, you know, kind of valleys going up and down, this is a little drainage ditch right here. Has no problem going diagonal across this. Going lateral back and forth across it. So up to like I believe a 40% slope, it can handle that without issue. And you can see it here again, it navigating no problem. Whether it was mapping or whether it was mowing, it did not have a problem going through that ditch. Again, I get it, that's not a huge hill there, but it is something to show the ability to do it. We have tried to review other mowers in the past that had this similar type of technology that didn't require any mapping out manually, but it really didn't go so well. This was much different. Literally, you take it out of the box, you set it up, take 15, 20 minutes to set it up, download the app. But once you basically say start mapping, as long as you've got some sort of boundaries that it can recognize, it does a very good job. Now, the second portion of the lawn, the larger portion of the lawn that we mapped out in the end, it had some sandy spots in it because there was some dead grass over the winter. So typical in Florida, we cover that with sand, and then pretty soon the St. Augustine will start growing up through there. And within a couple of weeks, that sand will be gone and there'll be grass. Well, initially, the robot was actually sensing that sand as maybe being concrete because it was bright white, and it did not map it out. Now, over time, as the grass starts growing through there, it will recognize that and continue to mow into it as long as it sees grass. So if you have dead spots like that, don't worry. Over time, it will recognize there's green grass there and start mowing that too. Now, as far as hills, we did have a drainage ditch that it had to go through, and it would go through it diagonal. It would go through it crossways. Didn't matter. It had no problem doing that. Wasn't a real steep slope, but it could handle it without problem. Now, this will handle up to a 40% slope. So most of your slopes in your general yards, it's going to take care of without a problem at all. We did have a couple of problem spots, and that was on the drainage ditch at each end where the culverts actually came out was kind of a piece of concrete that jutted out. And it really, when it was mapping, it was seeing it for sure, but around the edges, it was a little soft, some holes dug in it. So I literally drew some no-go zones right around that drain to make sure it didn't even try to go in there and get stuck. Especially during the wet season, that can get soppy right around those edges. So you can see here in the map where I just literally drew with my finger a no-go zone right there on the map. Very easy to do. Now, these are just hitting the market. When I say just hitting the market, literally in April of this year, right now, this month that we're releasing this, they're hitting the market. The E18 is going to run about $2,000, and the E16 is going to be the smaller unit, is going to run about $1,600. Now, the only difference between the two is literally the size of the yard, or basically the battery inside them, which means that the smaller one will do up to 0.2 acres, and the E18 that we just reviewed, it will do up to 0.3 acres, or nearly 1/3 of an acre. So square feet wise, you're looking at about 14,000 square feet on the larger model and somewhere around 9,000 square feet on the smaller model. So if your yard is in that window of say 1/4 acre or so, one of these units should be able to do that. And again, you're looking at $2,000 or $1,600. Also, they're going to have a $200 off when they initially hit the market. So if you hit it early, you may be able to take advantage of that. We'll have a link in the description if you're interested. Also, keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. And if you don't mind, hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And by all means, if you hated our video, well, give us a thumbs down. But let us know in the comments why. Have a great day and keep smiling.